and welcome to online class with me Nusrat Alam, lecturer in English, Milestone College. How are you all? I hope you all are fine and very busy with your studies. My today's online class is on two very important topics from English first paper, and we find them in question number 1A and 1B. Yes, you're right. Our today's topic of discussion is MCQ and short question answer. We find it in English first paper, question number 1A and 1B. And the total marks for MCQ is 5, whereas the total mark for short question answer is 10. Well, what is an MCQ? An MCQ is a form of objective assessment where a candidate is given 4 options. 1 correct answer along with 3 distractors. The candidate has to choose the proper answer from the given options. An MCQ item has a stem which asks a question, and the question provides 4 responses along with 1 correct answer and 3 distractors. The candidate has to choose the correct option from the distractors. Here the question intends to assess a candidate and his ability in particular area. If the student or the candidate has clear idea on that particular sector, he would be able to answer properly. For example, if I ask you a question, who is the writer of the famous short story Luncheon? The options are number 1, William Shakespeare, number 2, William Somerset Maugham, number 3, Lord Byron, number 4, J.B. Shaw. If the candidate or the student has his ability in the particular field literature, he would be able to answer it properly. And the correct answer is William Somerset Maugham. For an MCQ item, a reading text is taken from EFT book or English for Today book. After reading the passage carefully, after understanding the meaning of them and the inner meaning or theme of the reading text, we have to start our MCQ answers. Similarly, basing on the same passage that is given for the MCQ, we are also given 5 short questions. And reading the text carefully, we have to answer them as well. Well, there are 2 types of short questions. One is close-ended, another one is open-ended questions. What is a close-ended question? A close-ended question requires an answer containing only 1 word or a single sentence. But an open-ended question requires a descriptive answer, or rather analytical comparing to the close-ended question. Question comes, what kind of question that we find in question number 1B? In question number 1B, we find open-ended question. That means the answer of those questions has to be a little descriptive. While answering short question answer or open-ended question, we have to read the given reading text very carefully. We have to understand the meaning, the theme of the given reading text, and then we will attempt to answer the questions. While answering them, we just cannot quote or copy the lines that are given in the text, but we have to write them or describe them in our own language or in an analytical way. An open-ended question requires an analytical and descriptive answer. Only description is not going to be enough to make the idea clear of how are we going to write or answer MCQ or short questions. Let us have a practice. We have chosen a question that is taken from Noakhali Government College Test Question 2019. Let us read it first and then attempt the MCQ and short question. The sample question that we are going to solve today has been taken from Noakhali Government College Test Question 2019. And the reading text has been quoted from the famous story Luncheon. Let us read the story first or the passage first. I caught sight of her at the play, and in answer to her beckoning, I went over during the interval and sat down beside her. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I hardly think I would have recognized her. That means this was the second meeting of the writer with with a lady. She was an admirer of this writer. She addressed me brightly. Well, it's many years since we first met. How time does fly. We are none of us getting any younger. Do you remember the first time I saw you? You asked me to luncheon. Did I remember? Here, ironically, the writer says that line, did I remember? How he could forget such a luncheon with that lady. So let's go through what happened. It was 20 years ago and I was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment in the Latin Quarter overlooking a cemetery, and I was earning barely enough money to keep body and soul together. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. That means that the lady admirer had read a book written by the young writer, and she had written a letter praising his book. I answered, thanking her, and presently received from her another letter saying that she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. But her time was limited, and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday. She was spending the morning at the Luxembourg, and would I give her a little luncheon at Ford's afterwards? So this lady is asking for a luncheon from the writer. But the writer is not in a condition to give her a luncheon, but still, let us find out what happened. Fires is a restaurant at which the French senators eat, and it was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. But I was flattered, and I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman. I had 80 francs, gold francs, to last me the rest of the month, and a modest luncheon should not cost more than 15. If I cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough. So here we can see, as the writer was too young and he was very flattered that a lady admirer has written letter to him, not only once but twice, so he was very interested to meet that person. I answered that I would meet my friend by correspondence at Foyer's on Thursday at 12:30. She was not so young as I expected, and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. She was in fact a woman of 40, and she gave me the impression of having more teeth, white and large and even, than were necessary for any particular purpose. So these lines clearly describes that how disappointed the writer was after seeing that lady admirer. He thought of that the lady would be a young person or younger comparatively. She was talkative, but since she seemed inclined to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. Though the lady admirer was talked too much, but as she was talking all about him or was interested about him, he became an attentive listener. I was startled when the bill of fare was brought, for the prices were a great deal higher than I had anticipated. But she reassured me. I never eat anything for luncheon, she said. Oh, don't say that, I answered generously. Students, have you noticed that there are only two characters in this story? As it is a short story, the story revolves or the main story is only one incident, that is the luncheon. And the characters are also few, only two that we have found. And the story begins with these two persons. One is a writer and his lady admirer. When the writer was very young, he was really flattered at one of his lady admirer who wrote two letters to him praising his writings. And as the writer was very young, he also wanted to meet that lady. So the lady invited him to a very luxurious restaurant called Foyer's, which was beyond the writer's reach, and he never even imagined to go over there. He was not earning much, but still he managed to gather the courage to attend or join the luncheon. And the experience that he had over there, he could never forget that. So now let's attempt the MCQs and short question answers. Basing on these lines, now we are going to attempt some multiple choice questions and question answer. First of all, let us see what are the MCQs are. The first multiple choice question says, what does the word mention in the passage refer to? So we have to find out the meaning of mention or a synonymous word of mention. So let us check what are the options. Number 1, instance, identify, explain, allude. Instance means example, identify, explain, explain means describing, allude means mention or refer, and I think we have found the answer. Allude is the correct one. Number B says the phrase I caught sight of her means. Well, this phrase means the writer could see her or saw her. So let us find out which is the correct one. He caught her sight. He overlooked her. He saw her. He threatened her. Number 3 is the correct one. He saw her. Number C says, how does time fly? The line was quoted by the lady admirer, we can remember. So, how does time fly? We all know time flies and it goes on or it moves on fast and smoothly. So, let us check the options. Very tardily, very slowly, very lethargically, very swiftly. Well, the first option, tardily, means lately or making delay. Very slowly, we know the meaning. Very lethargically means lethargic means lazy. Very swiftly, swift means fast. So we all know time flies fast. What kind of restaurant Ford's was? Well, let us check the options and we all can remember that Ford's was a restaurant where French senators eat. So that was definitely an expensive one. So the options that we have here, they are Epicurean, plain, impoverished, dilapidated. The meaning of Epicurean means luxurious, plain means very simple, impoverished means poor, dilapidated means old or destroyed. So the correct answer is Epicurean because the restaurant was very expensive and very luxurious as well. So Epicurean is the correct option. Number E. Why did the writer accept the lady's proposal of going for a luncheon? Let us see the options. He was compelled. Was he bound to go there? No. He was blandished. Blandished means flattered. Yes, he was flattered. He wanted to spend the money. No, he was not in a position to waste money like that. He was too old to say no to her. No, I think the correct line is he was too young to say no to her. Let us check. I was flattered and I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman. So I was flattered is the correct answer. So we have already completed the MCQ answers. Now we will move on for the question answers. Let us see what are the questions that we have today. Number A says, what was the topic of the first letter written by the lady to the writer? Did the writer answer it? Let us check where the lines are or what does the text say. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. I answered, thanking her. Yes, the writer answered her letter and the first letter's topic was his book, the writer's book. She praised about his work in that book. So the answer would be this lady had read a book of the young writer and wrote a letter praising his work. The writer replied the letter thanking her. Number B. Where did the writer meet the lady for the second time? Where and when did they meet for the first time? Check out the text again. Where do we have the answers? Here I have given you three points which gives us some idea when they met. I caught sight of her at the play. Yes, they met at the play, but it was their second meeting because first time they met, it was 20 years ago. So they met two times and they met where? They met at Feuerts. So the answer of this question, that where did the writer meet the lady for the second time, and where and when did they meet for the first time? The answer is the writer met his lady admirer 2 times. They met secondly at the play, but they met for the first time 20 years ago at a restaurant named Feuerts to have a luncheon. Number C. Do you think that the writer was disappointed to see the lady? Give reasons for your answer. Yes, we could remember that how disappointed or how unhappy the writer was seeing the lady. So let's check out what does the text say. She was not so young as I expected. The writer was expecting a younger woman, not a woman like her, and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. And for him, the lady wasn't even attractive to him. She was, in fact, a woman of 40. She was really older than him, so he was very disappointed. Not only that, he also pointed some negative sides of that lady on their first meeting. So, the answer is yes, I think the writer was disappointed to see the lady admirer because the lady was not so young as the writer expected. Actually, the lady was a woman of 40 and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. Also, she was talkative. Number D. What does the writer want to mean when he says, I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman? Here, the writer was really young, so he couldn't be very practical or rude to a woman. So, the answer should be he was very flattered easily by the lady admirer, and that's why he couldn't say no to a woman also. The writer meant by the sentence, I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman, that he was too flattered by the lady admirer, and as he was very young, he couldn't say no to a lady. Question number E. I was prepared to be an attentive listener. What was the reason for the writer to be an attentive listener? Let us check why did he become an attentive listener. Check out the underlined sentences. Since she seemed inclined to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. As though she was talkative, but as she was interested in him or she was talking about him, he became a patient listener. So here is our answer. The reason for the writer to be an attentive listener was that the lady guest was talkative, but since she seemed inclined to talk about him, he was prepared to be an attentive listener. My dear students, did you attempt the question by yourself also? I hope you did. Our students often ask that how are they going to present the MCQ or question answer in their exam copy. Well, while answering MCQs, we have to be very careful about using the numbers. Students will use the number of the question and the number of the answer as well. For example, how does time fly? The answer is fourth option, very swiftly. So we are going to answer in this way. Our students often ask how many paras do we need to make while answering these questions. Well, my dear students, you should notice that there are some questions which are written in only one sentence and there are some who have two parts in them. So if the question has more than one part, your answer could also have more than one para. Or you can also make para according to the way you are describing it. Well, my dear students, I believe that it is quite clear to you now how are we going to write MCQ answers and short question answers in our exam. I hope you would be able to write them properly in your exam and score good marks. With the hope of your better health and better result, I'm going to end up my today's class here. See you some other time with some other topic. Till then, bye-bye.